This is a reflection on resurrection as it appears in a realization that is partly a dawning realization, partly sort of the final blossoming. But when it arrives, it's in a moment, it's sudden. There's a lifting of a veil or the taking off of incredibly dark sunglasses. But it's not a voluntary action. It just arrives. It's certainly not about questions of faith and doubt. They are part of the earlier dawning cogitation process, but they have nothing to do with the final realization. The resurrection accounts in the Bible are found at the margins. We hear in the Gospel sector for today, which is Luke's Gospel. The faith and doubt story was in John's. This one, the road to Emmaus, you hear an account of some women went to the tomb and they came back saying stuff that they'd seen the Lord, but there's no agreement on the part of these people on the road that is therefore an accepted fact. And just as Mary Magdalene and the other women, named and unnamed, are very much at the margins of the group of disciples, so are these two there. Only one of them is named, and they're not people we know much of. They're very much at the margins of society and even of the Jesus group of followers. And this is encouraging for those who seek the full realization of resurrection, because it's nothing to do with importance or intellect. It's to do with simply the heart as the voice of the truth and being is fully revealed. It's worth noting that this is very like the Annunciation. It does not arrive to the important. It is not the result of an election. It's not the result of years of study, although I think it would be fair to say in all these cases it is something that arrives after years of seeking the truth, of prayer. So Annunciation and resurrection are things that are understood, deeply experienced by those whose hearts are prepared. And we realize these disciples have been preparing their hearts. They've been following Jesus. They've been thinking about scriptures. They've been listening to women. But they're nudged today in this walk, or actually at the end of it, to a new understanding. The road to Emmaus was not so much a road as a track, and it wasn't really on the way anywhere. If you look at a map, they may have been heading for the sea, but certainly wherever their ultimate destination may have been, this is definitely a back road. It's a quiet road. They don't expect to encounter soldiers or even very many other people. And it's only 7 miles, as they're making their escape from Jerusalem, so it must have been felt to be a safe step. And although 7 miles isn't terribly far to walk, it's a nice, enjoyable walk. And walking is a time to balance. We hear that they had hope and that they no longer do. And their hope was for liberation for Israel. And they don't express hope around resurrection. It's just sort of noted as an enigmatic piece of information they've been told, but they don't have any hope in that. So along this walk with a friend, and a country walk, there must have been a gradual quietening. But of course, in the background, fear and this incredibly powerful event of the crucifixion that is very much with them. When they start walking with a third person, they talk about all these things. And this person interprets their concerns, the things they raise, in terms of the scriptures that they all shared. So, writings and other accounts from very long ago, but all of which tried to transmit the God dimension in their time, in their understanding. And the scriptures seem to come to life more in this discussion. They're brought into the experience these people are going through. The realities that they're experiencing are connected intimately through scripture. And you may have had experiences like that, where suddenly a piece of scripture you've learnt in another context as a sort of information about things that happened and understandings of God suddenly fall deeper into a particular situation and help clarify not only what is going on for you, but offer an insight, a corroboration, a pointing to that deeper part of yourself where you seek and find God. This conversation and the walking and the process and the later realization are a call to liberation. They are actually the call to liberation that these people felt they were seeking. They felt they were after liberation. But it was a liberation, a sort of socio-political liberation, and perhaps not thoroughgoing. I'm sure there were people in the society they didn't feel deserved to be liberated. It's rational, it's ego-bound, and it has a lot of emotional neediness in it, a lot about what me and my hopes, me and my needs. But this call that is filtering through is actual liberation. Liberation from death and constraint to life. So the original concept of liberation is bound up with cognitive constraints, the constraints of the rational mind, what they think they need to produce the liberation they're longing to encounter. What they find instead is a liberation already present, but suddenly revealed in clarity to them. For Christians, it's important not to be quick to take this story or this understanding or this account back into bondage, and a new sort of bondage, a new cage made, but equally constrained. So a liberation for me, there's me and there's you, there's us and there's them, there's right and there's wrong. This liberation is not cognitively constrained. It's not a liberation perceived by the rational mind. It is true liberation. It's complete freedom. It's actual resurrection. It's actual eternity present now. And God moves then from a fantasy or a hope or a set of ideas into reality, into an encountered, full truth. This moment arrives for them when the stranger, the person they've been talking to, takes bread at the shared meal and blesses it and breaks it. It's important to note that this would have happened at every meal, in other people around in the inn, for all of these people at every meal they took. The blessing is the grace, it's a thank you, it's an act of repeated thanks for the gift of food to a hungry person, but actually beneath that, for life, the life that sustains the life in me, all in a unity. It's an image Jesus himself uses. So the bread is taken and it's blessed, a recognition of life. And then it's broken like Jesus on the cross, like each of us in our suffering, broken and shared. It turns out not to be a single thing, a single loaf of bread for me, you get your own. There's life broken and shared, and that's when they see Jesus. They see the resurrected Jesus. God is not a construction of the reasoned mind or an agreement or an assent by the reasoning mind. God is not a fantasy or a possibility that might bring some hopes. But God is the present reality, clear as day.